All right, you're all set.
All right, welcome everyone to the May 28th meeting of the College Career and Life Readiness Committee. We do have a quorum with members Best, Thompson, and myself. We are expecting President Patterson to join momentarily, and we will let him have the floor first so that he can then go on to the rest of his day. But as we wait for him momentarily, I'll just go over the agenda is to talk about work planning, which we know graduation requirements will be the bulk of that. I have a note to myself to just ask one final time if there's anything else anyone wants to put on the plate that we should plan out. And then most of our time today will be discussing graduation requirements task force. So we will be voting to approve or not, but hopefully approve the application to the task force. We need to discuss among ourselves what criteria we're going to use and how we want to, if we want to have markers for representation that we want to achieve on the task force, and what criteria we will use to select them. Sorry if I said that twice. And then Andrew is here specifically to help us talk about how to do our outreach to recruit members to the task force. And then we can entertain any new business. And what do you
Yeah,
think, Jen? He's almost here?
yeah, I'm not seeing him in the attendees yet, so
All right.
you could.
Yeah, well, let me start. So President Patterson is going to come and talk a little bit about, give an update on education as a civil right. He did share the draft resolution that he had. I know I've taken a look at it. I'm not sure if others have had a chance to do that or not. We need to decide whether we want to do work planning around that issue. And here's President Patterson. He appears to be frozen.
It's frozen on my end as well.
All right, President Patterson, we see you. It appears you're muted.
Unmuted now. How's that?
That is perfect. We are gonna give you the floor first so that you can then move on with the rest of your day. But
I appreciate that.
it is you're up.
First, I apologize for being late and everything like that. I was driving. So, Jen, thank you for sending me the link because I'm not on my computer at home right now. But what I wanted to come in front of the committee just to say is that over the last month or so, like 2 months, I've been trying to do extensive outreach and community building around the resolution that I proposed and also shared with everybody. I've shared it with groups like Empower K-12, with the Policy Center, going back again with PAVE. I know I shared it with PAVE and they had some comments about it, but I'm actually meeting with their executive director, Maya, next week. And just doing the whole gambit, try to speak of community people that I think should be invested. Also, it has been shared with like Kathy Riley, and just trying to make sure that I touch the bases that people had asked me to do, doing the community engagement aspect of it. And I was hoping that now we could now move this to being part of the working meeting and trying to move the resolution. As I've stated before, I am not trying to move legislation at this particular time, but I would like to have a resolution on quality education. Quality public education is a civil right. And the other thing I wanted to indicate, so to speak, and you can tell me how you guys feel about certain aspects of it. But we really tried to answer questions about things that came up that was very controversial, I guess, for some of the people when we had the testimony back in November about, what did this mean about vouchers? What did this mean about, um, litigation, ESAs, and all those type of things. And I think we answered those questions in the draft. Very open to hearing, what other people have to say about it. And it would be during that period of time, like with all resolutions, where we could still craft it and everything like that. Um, with Jen being on here, we want Jen and those guys to add the staff, the state board's staff aspect to it, of making sure that it's factual, that it's based on, the right practices and everything. So that's kind of where we are right now. Would really like to, um, in the working meeting, move it to the agenda for the next month's public meeting.
So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One, I think that we have seen some correspondence with you and the Ward 7 Education Council, but I believe that meeting is going to take place in June. Is that correct?
I believe I had asked previously because I've been talking to them for a couple months too, and to get on their particular schedule. And they've stated so that we're clear, they stated what their thought process was. They wanted me to come and personally present.
Mhm.
So I told them I was willing to do that. I don't know if that's something that needs to be done prior to movement, but yes, there has been correspondence back and forth. And actually, I tried to make sure that I was like trying to keep them abreast of what my intentions were, to be transparent.
And then second question is, as you have done outreach with these different parties, um, is there something that you can share with us in terms of what feedback you received from them?
Yes, I can. I think one of the biggest changes between November, to be honest with the committee, between November and some of the conversations that we've had, is basically revolves around what has happened to the Department of Education, to be honest with you, that you've seen a gutting of the Civil Rights Office, so to speak, where a lot of people are feeling as if they have no real protection and defining what a quality education means. And in conversations with a person that I consider a mentor, and one of the committee members knows him well, is Pastor Curry and stuff like that. He was basically saying, like, Jacques, we need a strong vision for the city, no matter who is in office at any given time or who's on the state board. We could put together a resolution that really points to a North Star. And he really enjoyed reading it and kind of giving me input on it and kind of giving me some guidance on it. And so those are the type of things that I'm hearing, is that just the whole meltdown of what's happening at the Department of Education calls for us, I know we're not a state, but us at the local level, what they're doing at every other state, is defining what education means for them, and kind of putting it into into narratives, because that's what we're seeing it happen in other states, is they're actually starting to take control of their education as the Department of Education kind of is going through what it's going through. Hopefully it'll come back in 4 years, but right now people are really trying to say, what does a quality education mean for them, and that every child has a civil right to it. So that's what I'm hearing.
Great. Ebony Rose, I'm sorry, Representative Thompson has a question.
Sure.
I didn't know if you were finished with your questions. I'm happy to wait.
I have more, but go ahead.
Okay. So I think I have, actually, let me wait because this is my little sister calling me.
No problem.
All right. In that case, I'll proceed. So, you talked about not asking for legislation at this time. Does that include altering the language, like at the end of your current draft,
Yes.
or at least the last draft I've seen, was recommending an amendment.
Yes.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. An amendment to the charter.
Yeah. We would
Removing
change that language.
Okay. So I guess would you be sharing a revised version of your resolution with us? I'm not I'm still thinking of how this would work. through our committee. And the timeline that you suggested. So are you planning to
So a timeline,
revise?
what I see could potentially happen is that you guys, discuss, talk, vote, um, and with, you know, amendments, so to speak, that can be taken, with like we do with all resolutions, um, throughout the process of leading all the way up to basically the meeting, because I think there will probably be more people once we add it to the meeting. But in theory of the resolution, like we've done with a lot of resolutions, as long as it makes the timeline for the staff to make sure that it's published and ready for publishing, is that you guys would vote and say, yes, we, want to move it forward, um, based on any other, corrections or revisions that may come, in the timeline before the public meeting.
And the earliest we could do that would be end of June.
Say that again.
The earliest that we could do that would be the end of June.
Yeah, because there's no meeting in July.
Okay.
There's no public
right.
meeting in July. All we have is a working meeting in July.
Representative Thompson is back.
Yes, sorry about that. Trying to make sure everybody gets home safely. I have two questions. So,
Okay.
one, I am curious about, or maybe it's three. With the Ward 7 Ed Council, you mentioned you didn't think it was necessary prior to moving. What are we using for like enough engagement? What are the steps that we are saying our hope to like? I'm not so I'm clear on like what the steps are we are hopeful about. I also don't know if I've missed something where I looked at the draft resolution, but I have not seen any updates to the resolution and some of the things that you're saying you've been addressing with different constituencies. Where do we go to get that information?
Okay, so I can definitely give you guys, well, let me say it this way, Representative Thompson. If you've read through it, a lot of the first things that came up, as I just stated, concerning vouchers, concerning ESAs, concerning this being litigious where you're trying to get monetary compensation, so to speak, or whatever the case may be. Those are in the language, and those were changed prior to me giving you this. Um, it basically says things such as, and I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. It says things such as, you cannot get monetary, compensation for this. It's not something that you can get money for. It also says that it does not support ESAs or vouchers. These were some of the issues that were brought up early on, months ago, that was changed and put in this particular resolution right now. Those are the type of things that we've heard, and we went back to those groups and talked to them about those things. I talked in depth to Josh Boots about his thoughts on it, from K-12, and I know you know him, Empower K-12. And so those are the type of things that I wanted to make sure that people understood, that I heard them from the meetings and the notes that were taken. And those changes was made in this particular edition.
So I'm not sure if I'm following what we're calling the different editions, and maybe I just have not seen the most recent version, but I think there's a lot of different concerns that folks had. One of them being, what are we calling a quality education? And I know we had talked about possibly doing some work around what we consider a quality education. And I think I don't hear that being addressed. I think that's particularly important to me. And I'm also I would say separately, I am also trying to understand what we hope to achieve with this. And I think there's a conversation that deserves to be had around that. If we are suggesting that between now and June, we would see not only the updated resolution and some of the like the correspondence and the tracking of the ideas that you're talking about, so that it's not just that those constituencies feel heard by you, but also that we as members can give the full consideration, I can understand us entertaining that for our June committee meeting. But I'm not sure if that's what's being asked of us at this point.
No, I'm not asking because there is not a meeting in July. I'm not asking for it to be delayed or anything in that particular time. To be quite honest with you, Representative Thompson, I think that the committee and I think a lot of constituents that we have talked about has had time to review it, provide their opportunities to have input to it. It's not something that has been hidden or something to that effect. In fact, the committee has had it for a couple months, I believe, the latest iterations. And that's why I checked in with the committee, a while ago, said I'm looking forward to hearing if there's any type of revisions or anything like that, specifically from the committee and the members.
Mhm.
As I went through discussing with
I
outside
don't mean,
external groups. Okay.
sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
don't mean to, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do because I don't want what I'm saying to be, maybe I wasn't clear in the concerns that I'm raising. I am not suggesting that there is a lack of transparency. I'm also not suggesting that we have not had this resolution in committee for some time. I think I am asking, because when we left the last meeting that you came to, we did not have a clear set of actions that we agreed upon with you and the committee to take for when this would be ready. Since you have done engagement, and we are now having a conversation about the engagement that you have done, that we would now be able to say, here's what has been addressed, here's how it has been addressed, because those things had not been addressed, or maybe they had and we were not aware of them as of the last committee meeting. And so that's why I was suggesting and I was asking if there would then be a conversation at our June committee meeting about the
And
changes
you're
that
con-
have been made, because we were not charged with doing engagement, and you have a certain amount of information that we don't have.
And
okay.
if I may, so
Go ahead.
we saw the version, President Patterson, that incorporated the feedback from the early round, like the things that you're mentioning about vouchers, making sure that charter schools are included and so on. That's in the version that we've already seen. But it sounds like you are anticipating or planning additional changes based on the engagement that you have done since then. And so I think what we're asking to see is a reflection of those changes, and also something for you to convey to us the feedback that you got from these groups. So, you know, whether it's if they emailed you thoughts, or if you can summarize, say, this is what Empower K-12 reported, this
I
is
can
what,
provide that.
and then we can see that, and then we can consider that along with our own revisions. So like I can I can give you comments on the uh the the draft that we had now, but I'm asking if I should wait until you have another draft before I give that feedback.
I believe you should go ahead and give me that feedback now, sir.
Okay. I can do that in the coming days.
And I think just procedurally, like while it's still being discussed, it still lives in the committee until it's voted out, which I know folks have said, but I wanted to reiterate that.
And so if what I'm hearing, and in this instance, in this particular situation, are we saying that we have to wait till after the June meeting now? And your June meeting is after the public meeting.
I
Is that
think,
correct?
I'll speak for myself because we're all discussing it at the moment. I think for me, to be ready to vote this out of committee, I would want to know what changes are being suggested based on the conversations you have had. So those can be incorporated and we can consider the most recent version. if I am being asked today to vote this out of committee, I honestly would just vote it down. And I am trying to give a chance to consider all the information because for me, I still do very much have some concerns about what we are saying we are guaranteeing to people. I also am not clear on I guess like how this moves the needle for that. And I think those are conversations worth having. And so I did not know coming into this meeting that there was additional information for us to consider. I do appreciate you reaching out to the committee and checking in, but I don't have what I would need to vote this out of committee. So I'm suggesting that we are able to review things in advance and then we can take a vote as a committee.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, Representative Thompson, and I'll ask my question again. So is this committee is not going to vote, maybe not at this particular time. So the next time that it could take it up is at the end of June. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's our next committee meeting.
That's our next committee meeting.
Okay, so there is, and what I'm trying to get to is trying to get it on into the working meeting as a presentation and into the public meeting that is at the end of June, well, in the middle of June, that precedes your committee meeting is what I'm working toward. But from what I'm hearing is that you guys would need these things, and maybe there's another, I don't know, another opportunity for you guys to vote it out. I know there's no other meeting from my understanding, so I would have to wait till June.
Representative Johnson Law has her hand up.
Thank you, Representative Henderson. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And sorry, like I'm coming from the doctors and I'm in the car. President Patterson, first of all, thank you for coming to us. Suggestion, maybe compromise for you and for the committee. Is there a way, because you were talking about the working session and I was thinking about how we have different folks come to the working session to present to all of us as a board. Is there an expert witness that you could present to the board to talk about this issue more in depth? So that way the committee along with the board could ask more in-depth questions. Is that possible while simultaneously doing the things that Representative Thompson and Henderson have? So feedback, the different, the different organizations and their feedback, and then we put it all together. Even if it doesn't get to a June meeting, we would have all the information to get it to a working session, to get it to a public meeting. Is that agreeable?
Well, first of all, I'm going to always kind of be considerate of the committee, but yes, that is very possible. To bring someone to the working meeting and voting it out at that particular time. I'm open to that aspect of it.
Maybe okay. Or another suggestion could for a person to the committee, and then maybe, you know what I mean? And that could also be another option as well. I'm just trying to think
Johnson Law,
through.
you cut out. Could you repeat that, please? LaJoy, could you repeat that, please?
Sorry, guys, it's the rain. It's another option would be to have an expert person, maybe to come to one of our committee meetings to talk to us as well. That's also another option. So that way the committee, as it's doing its work, again, in committee, can have more of an understanding before you present it to the larger group. That's also another suggestion.
Okay.
I think the solutions
again,
to continue to move forward.
And Representative Johnson Law, I appreciate all of those. But what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing correctly, is that it is not going to come out of this committee at this particular time. So it would not be on the working meeting. You guys would not be reporting it out as voted out in you guys' committee at the working meeting, which is next week. That would not allow it to be on the agenda from your perspective, the current process would not be, it would not be permitted in the public meeting in June. And seeing that we only have a working meeting and no public meeting in July, the next time we're talking about it is August. Am I understanding that's you guys' thought process around it?
I think that's
Our
correct.
timeline?
I think that's correct. I do want to recognize Representative Best. He's tried to speak.
So, all right, I'm just trying to make sure I have everything. What are the things that as a group, that you all feel is necessary to get this out of committee? Just because I just want to make sure that like there is like that there is some type of endpoint or there's something that we're working towards. So for example, I know Dr. Patterson just mentioned earlier some of the changes he was going to make to it, saying that he was no longer proposing the bill. He also was changing um, the end of the resolution as well. So if he had those changes in there and submitted those changes, is that enough right now to get it through committee? And if not, what are those tangible things that need to be accomplished?
So for myself, I would say yes to any revisions, particularly of that import. And then also just some sort of report, some way for us to see the feedback from the work that you did, President Patterson, with these groups.
So
Okay.
I just want to make sure because I want to make sure that because I know we've been going through this for a little while now, and I just want to make sure that it's that we're going somewhere, right? So the report out.
I'm happy.
Fe-
Oh,
say-
sorry, Brandon. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, report out feedback, the feedback that's incorporated into it, or just like a feed out that is sharing like what people are saying.
For me, it's both. Like I'm happy if it to make it clearer, if the bottleneck here is around clarity. But for me, I don't know how we can vote on something, an addition of something that we've not seen yet. So I do think that saying, okay, let's see the revisions so we can read it and know what we're voting on is reasonable.
Mhm.
I also am asking if there have been conversations with certain stakeholders who have said, this is good, this is bad, this is what I want to see, that there is some record of that. Because it's not that I don't believe that work has been done. I'm just asking to see the work so I know what I'm voting on. I also have stated from the beginning that one of my concerns, two things questions I would like answered is one, what are we considering is a high quality education, which is why I suggested, I believe back in January or February, that there be some engagement done to say, here is what we are saying is a high quality education, or else the guarantee does not matter. That still we have no agreement or definition on. And lastly, I am asking, what is our hope with this? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the end goal? So is it to bring attention? Is it in hopes that another action will be taken? Is it something that I don't see because I can't articulate why this is a need right now. And I suspect there are reasons that President Patterson is saying there's a need right now. And so that is what I am asking for. I'm happy to write that down send an email and include everyone on the committee, just so it's not lost. If that makes things clearer or more helpful. But that is me speaking for myself.
All right, Representative Johnson Law, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Representative Henderson. This is in response to what Representative Thompson said. I think, and I don't know if this is maybe directed towards the committee or to President Patterson, but a great place to start when we're talking about a high quality education is the DC boundary study that we spent literally a year working on that talks about what is a high quality education. I think that is a great starting point if people are trying to get clarity around that. That's a good starting point for us to, one, get clarity, and two, if we're asking for definitions, to define it, and again, and to agree upon it. And then also too, I think before this conversation ends, like, can we have some dates and deadlines and next steps about like what needs to happen, so I'm clear.
Yeah, so that's part of our work plan portion of the agenda. So President Patterson, I think what I can say to you is that we move, like, our next agenda item for this meeting is to talk about work planning, which can include, and the agenda does include education as a civil right and graduation requirements work. And I think that you are correct. I believe everyone, I shouldn't say that. My understanding, and I believe that Representative Thompson has said this as well, she can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we would need to, and thank you, Representative Best, for enumerating these things. We need to see a revised resolution if we're to vote on it. Also, the feedback from the engagement that you've done in some form. And then we could vote on that at our June meeting. But I don't see that we could have it at a public meeting before August. Is there a is that agreeable to you, or that's not?
It's not. It's not. I will do the things that this committee is asking, but you're asking me, is it agreeable to me? No, but I will do what this committee is asking
Because your preference would be to
this
do it.
month in
Okay.
June, and I want to be clear about that. But I will do what this committee is asking.
Well, we can make the co-chairs will make every effort to make very clear what we think we need to move forward.
I look forward to your notes.
All right,
right,
thank you.
Thank you.
And we can now move to that portion of the agenda where we will discuss our work planning. And so the first item was the education as a civil right. And so based on the conversation that we've just had, I think I will propose as a first draft at that would be that at our between now and our June meeting, the co-chairs will reach out to President Patterson to request a revised resolution and some summary of the engagement and feedback that he has conducted. And on receipt of that, we will look at that ahead of our June meeting. And at our June meeting, we can vote on whether or not to move that out of committee back to the board. And I invite any members input on that proposal. Somebody gave a thumbs up, but I don't know who.
That would be me.
Okay,
Thompson, thumbs up.
Thompson, Representative Best.
Well, and you said that's the review, you said to review it on, you said our next meeting?
Yeah, so assuming that we get the drafts with enough advance time to review them, we as members would review ahead of the meeting.
Right.
We could have some discussion at the meeting itself. We would plan on voting it up or down at that meeting.
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, that works for me.
Okay.
And I'm happy to, and like I said, I'm happy to take the lead on drafting an email. And if it is better to circulate it before the committee, just to make sure it captures what is helpful for folks, and or any suggestions, like Johnson Law's suggestion of looking at the materials from the boundary committee. We can have that in one place before saying, this is what we need, this is what we would like to have.
So I do have a question though.
Yes.
And it's I guess it's like an incredibly blunt one. I guess the question is there anything that could be done that would actually get people to move it forward? And what I mean by that is it's a controversial topic and all of that other stuff. But like what are the things like really that would need to happen in order to move this forward?
I mean, I don't know. So I would ask you the same question, but I've given my answer. My answer has been consistent. I personally am not risk averse, but I want to know not just what is the risk, but why are we doing it? And for me, I don't understand the end goal of this other than to say we said something. I also don't understand that we, as not just as a board, but as community members, are saying we are guaranteeing two people.
Well, I
And
think
so
my question.
that's why I'm pushing for language to be included that is saying, like, what are we agreeing on? It's not new that folks wanted to do engagement. It's not new. Like, literally, I have given personally every piece of runway I could for folks to do runway and engagement. There was a working group, there's all the different things. And the only thing we at this point have to look at is that resolution. And so all I'm asking is to come back and share with us what version you want us to vote on. And so I don't think
No, yeah, I
I have
agree with that part.
I at no point have I ever moved the goal post on this. I have been consistent. And so it's not I appreciate you asking the question, Representative Vest, but I'm also only one person and everybody gets a vote. And so if other people have thoughts or feelings about it, they should raise it. But I do think encouraging, because it matters, like encouraging conversations to be had, being able to say, this is why we're doing it, this is what it will accomplish, this is how it moves the needle. Those aren't superficial questions. Like, and I'm not even the kind of person to like ask questions to just like make it be difficult. Literally, if I ask a question, it's because I'm looking for the answer. And so I'm going to continue to ask those questions. I'm going to write those things down, even though I know they have been documented in the notes for months and we have not had answers to them. And that's what it would take for me to say, this is a good idea. But until I can articulate that, I am not going to say it's ready to be voted out of committee. And so that is my sincere response. And I don't know, Representative Best, if you have different feelings or if you feel like this is ready to go today, because people can always call a question to ask for the vote today. But I'm being upfront and saying, I don't think this is ready to go today. And I don't know what version of this I've been asked to vote on. And as the co-chair of this committee, the only communication we've received is an email saying, like, can I come to the meeting? And then we had to have a conversation going, is he requesting us? Is there's been a lot of lack of clarity. And so that's why I'm also taking responsibility to say, if I'm unclear, I want to get clearer, and here's what I would need to do that.
No,
Since
I get
the
that.
conversations have not been sufficient.
So I do like agree, you know, like if there is you know, something that needs to be voted on, you'd have to, you know, physically see it first. So I agree with that. I do wonder, and I can go back and check, because I think the statement of what a quality education, not saying that we all have like agreed on it, but I think was in the whereas statement. And I don't know, like maybe I have to go back and check that out.
No,
And if that's something that we have to like, you know, like agree on or things of that nature, then that's totally fine too. But I thought, and I may be wrong, and I'm totally cool with being wrong because I'm wrong often sometimes. Uh, but that I wonder if that was something that was also included in the whereas statements.
so I can speak to that because I've reviewed it recently enough to know that um, yes, there is a definition. There actually, I would say there's more than one definition of what a high quality education is in the last draft that we saw.
Hmm.
But I'm uh, so that's a an out to me that's an outstanding issue. Like just to have those definitions be consistent. But then the other question is, uh, based on the feedback we got when we had the panel, I imagine that's a topic that the people that he spoke to in the interim had something to say about that. And so we need to kind of see, well, what did they say? Is that influencing, a revision or not? So that we have that information too. But you're right that there is a whereas clause that does have a definition. I don't know if it would be a consensus definition or not.
No, I get that. I guess when I hear like there what we have like what's the definition, I was like, oh well, there's one in there. Not saying that everyone has agreed on it. I just wanted to like you know point that part out. But I'm with y'all. So I think that like if we get it ahead of time, we can review, and then by the next time we meet, we can connect on that.
And Representative Johnson Law,
Thanks.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
sorry.
It's
One
okay.
last thing. If there was, let's say if he provided us with that information, would it, just to ensure that it doesn't go on, because I get the you know like going on until August, that would seem like a long time. Obviously this would be another option that would work also, but let's say for whatever reason, would we be able to convene a brief or emergency if we needed to? Would that be another option as well?
Is there a reason to?
Yeah, the reason would just be like, so that it's not like dragged on, because if we don't have the meeting, that other month, then it would be, you know, another, you know, couple months for this thing to actually, you know, go through or not go through. And so for me, it's just like, let's figure out what, if we're gonna keep it on our plates, or we'll do that, or if we're gonna not have it on our plates, we shouldn't do it. And basically, I just would rather not have like, you know, something like this just dangling over our heads for an extended period of time.
Yeah, no, I'm proposing that June would be that moment. So our June
Okay,
meeting,
cool.
we would we would decide. I guess the eventual or the possibility would be if we didn't make quorum for our June meeting for some reason, I would say in that case we should consider rescheduling rather than waiting an additional month.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Really quick, what you all said about, I guess, like the meeting behind it all, like what's the purpose of this? I thought the purpose for this was to let families know that like we stand with them and we want to make sure that their children are covered, especially since the district is under attack. Is that not where we are? That was my understanding of it. Like as a body, as a board, like this is what we are saying to families and particularly Black families.
I am saying, speaking for myself, I do not have an understanding. And so I don't know what else to offer. But I am saying I do not have an understanding other than we want to say something. I don't, and sometimes that is good enough, and sometimes it is not. And so I am saying I want to absolutely understand why this is the lever we need to pull and what we are including in that. And I am saying that the things I would need to understand that and to sign on with that are what I articulated before.
Okay, so that definitely needs to be clear with everybody, because if everybody has a different level of understanding, then that's not helpful at all for anybody.
And it's also seems to be changing because like today was the first time that I've heard that there would not be an ask for a change in the charter, which I think makes a difference for at least some people. A big difference.
Because it's including charter schools, which no offense, it should.
No, I'm sorry. I mean the
He's talking
DC
about
charter,
the home rule charter.
home rule charter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And that's and this again, I think goes back to just like why we need to be able to see the writing, and why folks are asking for clarity so we can be on the same page. And so that's also why I'm suggesting, which I appreciate Representative Best's suggestion of enumerating, because I do feel like we keep having conversations and then we keep restarting in different places. Um, and I do not have a sense that everybody's on the same page. I also appreciate you, Representative Johnson Law, making a suggestion about what we should be using, because when I looked at the resolution, I did not see like an aligned and consistent definition. And I also think that is like the core of what we are saying we cover folks with. Just like you, Representative Johnson Law, bring up the fact that we make a lot of commitments around special education. And I would offer a lot of people, even though we say those things, don't feel covered by them. And so I am just asking that the work be done to make sure everybody's aligned on the same page. And if we make a statement that matters. And so that is what I'm asking to consider. And it sounds like we have a path forward and a timeline, because we also did not have a timeline or agreed upon actions that everyone will take when we left the last meeting, despite the fact that we had a very long conversation about it. And so I am hopeful that being written down could also help us move forward and not keep us dangling, as Representative Best suggested.
So I believe that we do have consensus on that portion of a work plan for education as a civil right, as we lined out and is in the chat. So let's move to graduation requirements work plan. And I think I might shortcut us on this a little bit by saying that we did discuss a time frame for the task force. And so I think that largely fills in the work plan for graduation requirements for the remainder of this calendar year, although some of that is subject to when we receive things from OSSI. So
I did
think-
hear recently that they are still planning to submit the draft in August.
Okay. So if everyone feels good about that, I think as we discuss the selection process for the applications, that will fill in kind of the next couple months of work around this. So I want to go ahead and go to this portion of the agenda. Quickly, I think we did receive written responses to the letter that this committee sent last year to Aussie. Aussie covered most of this, if not all of this, when they came to the working session. So it's just that we now have it written as well. So I would say I would encourage the committee members to look through those and see if there are remaining unanswered questions, particularly that we want the task force to pick up. Representative Johnson Law, is your hand up for this?
No, sorry, that was from the last time. Apologies.
All right, no problem. And so I'll ask you to look through that and flag things that you want to make sure that the task force addresses. And then next, I'd like for us to vote on approving the application. So if this was shared in the pre-meeting invitation, but Jen has been doing some final touches. So I think if I could ask everyone to look at the application form and maybe put a thumbs up or something once you have looked at it, and then we can vote as to whether we can approve that and post it. Do you have the link, Jen? Okay, thank you.
I know some people are on mobile too, so
Okay,
if you need me to share my screen, I can also do that. It's not too different from what they used when they did the last task force. It is basic questions about themselves and, you know, the information we collect too when asking for public witnesses to sign up for testimony, and then a few essay questions, short ones, at the end.
so Representative Best and Johnson Law, have you had a chance to look at it? I see that Representative Thompson did read it before the meeting.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to
Sorry,
Jen.
what's up? Oh, go ahead. What'd you say?
Have you been able to look at
No,
the?
no. Representative Thompson just was
Oh,
saying
no, I
something.
was saying, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Jen for getting us pretty close to the finish line on this. I'm excited about the task force kicking off, and I think the application makes sense. So I put my thumbs up in the chat.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking that I was on mute and I was looking for the mute button, but I couldn't find
Oh,
it. But I'm not clearly. So yeah, no, I'm good with it.
okay. So should we take a formal vote or
Yes,
a roll call?
So I
yes.
move that we vote to adopt the application for the high school graduation task force.
I second that motion.
Second.
The motion being properly moved and seconded, I would request a roll call vote.
Do you want me to call the roll, Representative Henderson?
I can do it.
Okay.
That'd be great. Representative Best,
Yes.
Representative Johnson Law,
Yes.
Representative Thompson,
Yes, please.
and Representative Henderson also votes yes. So we have approved the application to go live. And thank you, Representative Thompson, for pointing out that that was Jen's great work. Thank you, Jen. And so two items now that we have this approved. First, for us to discuss how our selection process, and then Andrew's been waiting this whole time to talk about how we can do outreach. So first, with the selection process, there's just a question of how we want to go about, like what criteria do we want to use as we select the members, and how do we want to, just technically, procedurally, how do we want to assemble the task force?
And I'll just add briefly, if you've seen the response from Aussie, one of the first questions was, who's in their steering committee. And some of these folks I know do overlap with the groups and people that the committee has been talking about. So just wanted you all to, like the president of UDC, for example, like if that's somebody you wanted to include on the task force, just know that even if they were interested, they might send somebody else, or maybe it's the same person, but they may not have feedback because they already gave it to the
They've
steering.
been involved. Yeah.
I just strongly suggest we have special education representation in this task force because we really need to dig into what OSSI is proposing and also trying to make sure that this is an actual, that students with disabilities that are where it's deemed appropriate can get a diploma, and maybe not necessarily an alternate diploma, because when we start, that a diploma and an alternate diploma are two different things. An alternate route to a diploma is still a diploma. I just have to, I have to reiterate that for the group. I'm sorry, y'all. I just have to, because I'm nervous about it.
So I think a couple categories, and I'm using the previous task force criteria a little bit here, is representation. So who an applicant would be able to represent, and that would include different categories, subgroups, and special ed certainly should be one of them. Another is experience, which is another route to being able to represent groups with certain experiences. Do we want to aim for numbers of like a certain number of teachers or a certain number of students, or do you want to just kind of look holistically once we have the applicants and just try to get the most representative group that we can? And part of this will depend on who applies, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this depends on who applies. And I'm sure this connects with Andrew's presentation that we are so eagerly awaiting, and how we target different individuals. But I think that what I have heard consistently from the SAC, but also what was suggested in the initial, hey, we should do this, is we will definitely want people with SPED representation. We also definitely want some recent graduate representation. We want parents and community member and educator representation as well. I think that the question about what is diverse and representative is a fair one. If there are certain folks that we want to reach and where should we push for, I would also hope that we really are giving members the tools to go out and do outreach in their communities about this. That's one thing I would like to see, and I'm also willing to work with Andrew on. And so those are, I do think that we should have some goals and reserve some spaces for like how many community members. We should have some, we should have some, how many community members, just like we do for the SAC, and saying like, we know we want East of the River folks. So, right, like how many East of the River folks, like that kind of thing. That's my 2 cents. I want to make sure that we have at least, and I think I suggested that we have no more than 20. I was very generous with the 20. I would be happy if we did not get to 20. I feel like, above 20 gets absolutely unwieldy, but I do think we should kind of start to slot in who we want and for what. And I don't know if anyone else feels strongly about the number of folks. But I am very committed to not going above 20.
Would you be willing to send out like a first draft of suggested numbers that you have in mind? I
Yes.
think we could take that as a starting point, and maybe that will
Yes,
be
I'm
that
willing to
endpoint as
sit.
well.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that I know we are trying to move to Andrew, so that way people could also like respond back. It would be helpful maybe if we set a deadline for me to send out, and then for folks to respond back. So like, for example, if we're talking about SPED and I suggest that we have, I'm just making up stuff, right? And I suggest that we have um, 3 educators, maybe we say one of those should be a SPED educator, right? Or, and then Representative Johnson Law can respond back and say, I think it should be 2 or whatever it is. So that's what I'm suggesting as a step
Yeah,
forward.
and people will be like dually and maybe triply and quadruply representative as well. So
Yes,
um,
sometimes.
yeah. So I think we have the window of the application window. So as long as we're working within that window, I think if you sent something out, um, when does the window end, Jen? Sorry,
June 30th.
June 30th. Okay, so maybe by the end of next week, Representative Thompson, if you could send out
Hmm.
your suggestion, and then we would give feedback by the next week.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll try to get it done sooner because honestly, I feel like if I don't think it's that hard to do, and I just don't want it to get so late and that I'm like,
Yeah,
oh wait, how stuff like um yeah, so let's give me a deadline of Monday. And Representative Henderson, I'm gonna say this to you as my co-chair. If you don't see anything from me by Monday, let's give me a deadline of Wednesday. If you don't see anything from me by Monday, Representative Henderson, please ping me.
okay.
But it doesn't, you know, I want to go ahead and get it done and get it to you all so you have time to give feedback and also that can inform maybe how we pivot some of our outreach if necessary.
Yeah, and I think also if you go back to your first document
Mhm.
on the task force, I think we all agree that that covered all the categories. I mean, I think you've just said most of them, but maybe
Mhm.
just check back with that to see that we've covered those things.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, the goal is always to build on. I'm just going to try to put that to numbers, like if we,
Mm.
yeah, if that's okay. Does that sound right to everybody? Is that helpful?
Yes. And so then in July is when we will actually be doing the selection after the window has closed. And I guess the question is like, what process would we use? We could do something similar to what we do for the SAC applications, where we just kind of assign a number of points and then um, see what comes out of that. But I am also open to us just kind of looking at all the applicants together and kind of trying to come to consensus on this. This is the most representative group that we could come up with.
I also know that I think the committee has discussed, and it was done at the last task force, anonymizing the applications in some way. So anybody who fills out the form, like I'll be able to see
Hmm.
all of their information, but I think what would be useful for me too is what information you all want removed. Also knowing that some people might identify themselves in their essay questions or something as well.
Or we would just know based on.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Uh, well, as Representative Thompson works on a proposal for the composition, I will work on a proposal for the process and on the same time frame and the same feedback loop.
And I
Um,
have something, credit going all the way back to Kathleen, um, that I can share with you too. That's just, it is similar to the SAC application, student rep applications. Um, so I'll be interested. I can work with you on that too.
great, thank you. And Andrew, um, let's move to you now on outreach strategy for recruiting applicants.
Yeah, y'all can hear me, right? Before. Okay,
Yes.
cool. So just kind of listening to what you guys were saying, I think probably the biggest challenge group to getting would be from that families, that's parents and constituents side of things. And immediately, like, what's kind of jumping off my head is reaching out to our partners in the community to ask if they wouldn't mind circulating our application on their newsletters and their listservs. Some that come definitely to my mind are, we have PAVE, obviously, that's a pretty obvious one. But, reaching out to those others who serve the communities and who serve our families in ways that we don't like, might not be top of mind, like community food banks, like the Capital City Food Bank, Martha's Table, um, people who do serve our communities and who do have a big reach with their with the people that they serve, and seeing if they could help us like skim a few to apply. Um, those are I think that would be very useful in reaching constituencies who might not be as plugged into the State Board of Education social media, on the sheer volume side of it. Like we could always, just like the student advisory committee, we've posted, I think, like 40 times about that. We could always just do a volume-based approach with our social media to see to get people who are attuned to us, but then we also have that extra weight of, having our community partners and those community serving organizations also circulate it. Um, I think that it probably wouldn't be such a heavy lift to get those people that we're regularly in contact with, like, the education cluster agencies. I know that we have very strong connections with them already. But those other kind of groups on the post-secondary and workforce side, we can reach out to people in the I just completely blanked. But oh, sorry, Council Member McDuffie's office. I know that Daniel Segarra is his policy advisor, and potentially getting somebody from that committee, that Business and Workforce Development Committee, um, or seeing who they could connect us with if they have any friends that we could potentially invite and ask to apply to serve on this task force. But those are some of the initial thoughts that I have, just based on the list that Jen shared earlier about just the groups that people had brainstormed being a part of this task force. Um, does anybody have any thoughts about that, or, is there something that you think that I'm missing with this?
My thought is that it would be good to do the volume outreach, and also ask members to do the more targeted outreach. So people who know their wards and know the people who are best to ask to get word out would do that. And I think it
Yeah,
would be
just because, sorry, and I should have asked this from the very outset, our objective here is to get as many applications as possible, correct? To score and to whittle down into the strongest task force we can have, right?
I think we want to cast the net as wide as we can for applicants. I'm not sure. I
Yes.
mean, I imagine that there will be people who then see what is required, and then that will whittle down the number, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I think we want the word out as wide as possible. I wouldn't necessarily
Yeah.
measure it by the number of applications that we get, though.
Okay, because in my mind, whenever I'm thinking outreach, I'm thinking objective is to get as many people to apply as possible, and then, building the best task force from that.
They had about 120 applicants for the last time the state board did this.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
that's a good benchmark.
Can I add a and I'm sorry moving around so much. I'm just back to back today, but
It's
can
okay.
I add a I guess a secondary goal? In addition to the getting applications in, I do think there's also just an opportunity for, because we're casting a big net, because we are promoting, for folks to just know that this work is happening, and encouraging and reminding folks that um, we are like a group that engages and builds off of engagement. Like I think the other goal is just awareness of the process, if that makes sense. So even if you might not be serving on the task force, just knowing that this is happening, and hopefully like lending your voice or like signing up for our communications or whatever. I think that is always a helpful goal for the board, so that we have voices at the table when we do further engagement, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So just let me uh, sketch this out really fast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a whole new like work stream about this where we have kind of two social media pipes running. One will be volume based and focused on getting applicants, and then the other will be general awareness about graduation, the process of revising graduation requirements. And then within the like larger pipe of this entire work stream, I'm gonna do email outreach to those community partners that I described before, asking them to share this application to their own listservs and to their newsletter recipients, or to personally share to whomever they think would have interest in this. Does that sound like a pretty comprehensive uh, package to you guys?
I think so. And sorry if you said this, but could you also just like draft a recruitment blurb for the ease of use for members to share as they're doing like targeted outreach?
A blurb about.
Just like
Sorry, you said a blurb about what?
like
Just to make sure.
here's the application, here's the link to the application. We invite you to apply to the task force. If you are not interested in applying to the task force, but you have feedback, you can provide it here.
Okay.
And you can feel free, at the top of the application, there is a brief description of like literally what is this and what would be expected of me if I were to apply. So you can grab any of that, or we can work
Mhm.
together as well on with the committee members on other language.
Okay.
But great thinking, Andrew, and thank you for getting us started. Much
Yeah,
appreciated.
of course. That's what y'all pay me for. So I'm more than happy to do it. Um, but those social media things will go live. I will have them scheduled out through the entire month, um, on Monday. So they'll start going live Monday. They'll be posted several times a day across all the social media channels, and that will run every day until June 30th. So we're talking maybe about 100 or so posts about this on social. Um, and then I'll also get the emails going out to those community partners as
And
well.
I believe committee members had asked previously as well about housing it somewhere on the state board website, and I have talked with Andrew about that as well. So
That is true.
he will find a home for it.
Y'all, this website's gonna kill me.
Knowing that one day, well, there'll be a beautiful redo of the website.
I know our website is a pain in the ass to work on, and I'm sorry that's true. But I would love to see a microsite for this, kind of like we have one for governance.
Yes.
Knowing all that entails, because it is not easy. So thank you in advance.
Of course. I had to remind myself that we're on a recording, so I can't say other thoughts. But yeah. So all of those things, website, social media, email outreach, those will be kicking off in the next 2 days. So
All right, thank you, Andrew.
yeah.
Any other questions for Andrew? All right, seeing none, is there any new business?
I have something I'd like to raise. We it's both I don't know how to say this, but and just because I'm running out of words for today, not because it's like controversial or anything, but when I think about our last set of public witnesses, and one of the young men who was a student raised SEL, and like that he wasn't seeing what he hoped to see in his school. One of the things that back at the end of last calendar year I raised with Ossie was we should be doing visits to see how a lot of the stuff we have passed, SEL standards, literacy recommendations, financial literacy, is actually happening in schools. And I think that one of the things I would like the committee to hopefully take up is just like making sure those visits happen and like getting members out to schools and actually seeing what this stuff looks like, and kind of creating our own feedback loop. I do think it would also behoove us to work with the Charter Association and others to do that. But it's been an idea on the table for some time. And the young man's testimony brought it back. But given those things would be, our committee things, like getting out to see the operations is something I would like to add to our work plan, like making that a thing, not just for us as committee members, but for all board members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought we were actually close. I thought that almost happened. Like we were even scheduling visits, but maybe not. So yes, let's work that in. Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, members, and thank you, staff, as well. All right,
Of
thanks
course.
everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.